Hey everybody, how you doing? It is Monday. It's family day. You know we gotta bring it in with a little jazz. Welcome in. I'm gonna give you a little minute or two to come in. I'm gonna check my Facebook. Is my Facebook live? Is your Facebook live? Are you able to share with your friends and your family on this beautiful family day? You know I gotta start. I gotta start with some beautiful Caribbean jazz with Calabash, led by Anthony Pierre. Now, I don't own the rights to the music. However, I do have permission to use the music. Isn't that fabulous? Calabash. That's the name of the group. And it's Calabash with a K. Ooh. And you know what it is? It's Monday night in Toronto, in some parts of Canada. It is Family Day. In Trinidad, it is Carnival time. It's Carnival Monday. Now, I should really be starting this with some soca, but I didn't get any permission to play soca. So, that's how we're kind of doing this tonight. It's going to be fun. I hope it's going to be fun. I know I'm going to have some fun. I have a great friend on tonight, so I'm excited. It's kind of like a supercalifragilisticexpialidocious night for me. And Madiza, hi, how you doing? Good to see you. Come on in. And you know what? If you are with us live and on the replay, I'm just glad you're here. And so before we get started, get your drinks, get your snacks, get your notepad. I know it's still Black History Month. I know people are still listening to things. I hear people in Trinidad are doing all sorts of stuff virtually. So I know I'm going to miss some people tonight, but that's okay. We can catch you on the replay. And we're going to drop some wisdom keys tonight. Hey, Serena, good to see you all the way in the U.S. We had a good conversation today. It's so good when you connect with friends that you haven't spoken to in a while. It is time, to start the show. So I am Nicole Waldron, your voice of victory. Serena today actually, and Dr. Vibes called me Dr. Victory today. What do you think about that? If I add a little spice to my name, Dr. Victory, Nicole Waldron. Victory speaks of the Inspired Conversation series. And it is where iron sharpens iron. And you know what that is about? You sharpening me and me sharpening you. And today we are going to continue this journey on living a victorious lifestyle. And I started the show about having inspired conversations because I always tend to have these inspiring conversations with friends, new friends, old friends, family. And I figured, you know what? It's time to share. Sharing is caring, isn't it? And as we are still celebrating, at least in Canada, 25 years of Black History Month, we just got to keep it going. I like to call it the anniversary because Black History is not just 1 month. It's a year-round thing. It's 365. So let's remember as we speak about Black History Month, we take it as a kickoff to educate, to do some advocacy. And we're going to talk about some of that tonight. Yay, Serena, Dr. Victory. Okay. You're on the Dr. Victory team. We should actually do a survey on that one. And so during this month, I want to, also amplify some voices. But today, I wanted to bring on a really special person in my life. We're going to be doing some projects together. He's a marketing guru. Some of us call him The Voice. Now, I'm the voice of victory. They call him The Voice. And he's multifaceted. He's a marketing specialist. He's a producer. He's a host and so much more. He's actually an award-winning business leader with over 20 years experience delivering business solutions for clients across diverse sectors, working in a range of industries and environments. He's a dynamic senior marketing and sales and business development professional and is customer-focused. He's a customer-focused strategist and developer of change management programs, including artificial intelligence. He's a change agent known for developing innovative strategy and business solutions to drive growth and long-term profitability for clients in startups, corporate, and technology sectors. He was actually even invited to the United Nations in Geneva, Switzerland, to advise on how to compete in the global market. He's a graduate of the University of Toronto and holds a holding marketing leadership roles with Fortune 100 companies. Can you tell I'm excited? I'm so excited I can't even talk straight. I gotta breathe and slow down. I gotta do a husa. Okay, yes. He's worked for UPS, startups like Hostapa. How do I say that? I'm gonna have to talk to that.
Utopia.
Hostopia.
Yeah.
Okay. Blue Genesis.
That's okay. That's okay. That's okay.
What's going on? Anton, what are you doing to me? He's worked with numerous companies in the consulting realm. He has worked with Rogers, TELUS, the TTC, and Autism Ontario. Yes, I'm telling you his first name now, Anton James. Now listen, that's just part of it. Music is also his passion. For over 25 years, he has his company called First Line Productions and is one of Toronto's premier production companies, producing a diverse array of concerts, corporate events, weddings, and soirees. And let me tell you, he's also an MC. That's why we call him The Voice. He's a great host and he's a great interviewer. He has participated, organized, and managed premier events that include artists such as Washington Savage, Love Washington, Kevin Clark, Take Six, Kim Burrell, Tone, Mary, Fred Hammond, and CeCe Winans, to name a few. Do any of those names sound familiar to you? They sure sound familiar to me. Let me tell you. In addition to his career and business involvement, this man still finds the time to dedicate to his community, volunteering with local youth groups, sports leagues, and choirs. Now, Anton James is my guest tonight. I can't wait for you to meet him. I need like a drum roll for like Anton. I should have brought up like the drum roll feature. Wait. I'm going to find it. I'm going to find a round of applause, the drum roll, everything for Anton. This is for people out there.
Very nice. Very nice. You're too kind. I hardly want to speak with such an intro such as that. That was a beautiful intro.
That's your intro, my friend. That's your intro. That is your intro, my friend. So how are you doing today, Anton?
You know what? I'm not too bad at all. I'm busy. I'm tired, but I'm doing pretty good. Keep pushing forward. Every day above ground is a blessing in it of itself.
You see, you already started. Every day above ground is a blessing. Okay, I'm telling you, people, get ready.
Mm-hmm.
I always have my pen and pad ready when Anton speaks. He's just so amazing. Mm-hmm. And so I want people to get to know you, get to know the essence of you tonight. And it's COVID-19. Let's start with COVID. Okay. You know, you have a family. How are you doing? How are you guys coping in this pandemic? The first P word of the night, pandemic.
Well, I'll be truthful. We're adjusted now. At first, it was a challenge. It was definitely a challenge being someone that's an extrovert, having young kids that they want to get out and going. So when you're stuck in your room and you get to the place where you're finally in your house and you've counted every dot on your ceiling and each blade of grass you've measured and changed the hue of the green. After a while, you lose your mind. But we learn to adjust. We learn to, go out, do walks, do a lot of drives. But you know what? One thing we have really pivoted as a family, not only locally but internationally. My family has, both sides of my family, we've started since the quarantine. We do a family Zoom, and we've been doing it every day. Every week. One side of the family does it on Saturday evenings. The other side will do it on Monday night, and we'll go for 4, 5, 6 hours every week. So that's
not every other week, not once a month, every week, Anton.
Every week, and there's another side of the family is kind of split, and so now there's 2 more that's branched off since that, man. So that side is really good, the interaction and the development, and hearing the stories, and when you're going through, you have from the grandmothers right down to the young cousins, and you're making a transition. It's really like when you think of traditional tribal or whatever terms you want to say, a real family community, we really built that. So that's a phenomenal thing. But the lack of interaction outside the family, it's had its challenges. It's had its challenges for sure.
Well, I'm fascinated. I'm kind of stuck on this family Zoom because I know I've tried to reach you sometimes, and you're like, I'm on a Zoom, and I'm like, how many Zooms are you doing at this time of night?
For sure.
Then you say I'm on the family Zoom, and now
Yeah,
you're saying it's two sides of the family Zoom, and you're on for hours.
for sure.
What do you guys even talk about, brethren?
You know, you'd be surprised. So yeah, so one is, as I said, is going on tonight, and everything from politics to how people are doing to how they're coping, the kids, getting the kids involved, what they like to do, if they have homework. In my family, I got a lot of guys that are math guys. So my daughter had trouble with math. We put on the Zoom and we all sat down and worked it out. Okay, Ada, try this, try that, try this. So it varies. It can be anything from entertainment to jokes to howls, what challenge they had at work. From the younger ones, some of the things that they're encountering. The older ones, they sharing stories. It varies. There's never a set agenda, but yet every night, every time we do it, we go on for minimum is 4 or 5 hours every week.
Wow.
Yeah.
What have you valued most in those conversations? Because I think this is a really great idea
Mhm.
that I'm going to piggyback on. But I'm sure anybody listening who is not yet doing it, doing family Zooms, because everybody's talking about being zoomed out. And I say, no, it's about the language. How about zooming in? So I think this is such a great idea to zoom in.
Yeah. Yeah, that's you're hitting it dead on. What I value to it is one, you're connecting with family, but you're making real relationships. It's not just auntie so and so,
Yeah.
and that's my cousin's daughter so, and I don't even know who they are. Now I know them all intimately. Like we can sit down there and say, listen, Kevin, what's going on, Kat? Man, what's happening there? Talk to me here. I'll say, listen, truth be told, this is what I went through, and it's really relatability. So it's multi generational. It is insights that you're getting. It's perspective and even guidance. So now we say, um, one's looking for a job here or looking for resources here, looking for school here. We say, listen, man, I know a guy. Let me see if we can link you up. And it's actual connections. Further, you're hearing family stories. When my mother grew up, this is what she actually did. And I said, wait a second. I'm having that challenge here. How about here? And you're able to transition through. So it's really an ability to take information. And, as a community, we, historically, we're more community driven than anyone else.
Yeah.
So I think the ability to sit down there and engage with our community, develop our community, and enhance. You hear all the differences, man. In every personality you have, some introverts, extroverts, some that are a little bit more annoying, some that are a little more technical, some that are more want to be in front. And it's your iron sharpening iron, because the ones that are annoying, you start telling them, listen, you're annoying when you do this, man. Why are you doing like that? And they give you a different perspective. Or for the some that don't want to talk, you say, okay, listen, you engage them. Or you say, Anton, you talk too much. I'll say, okay, I'm going to talk back a little. So you're learning to engage in a safe environment. I love it.
So, you're really, sparkling my juices. Now, what are there negatives to having this Zoom connection with all these people every week? Does it not get tiring?
No, tiring, no. Negatives, yes. So I have a particular family member that has a personality type that it might do well with a little bit of a little bit of sandpaper, because they're and sometimes you gotta you dance, but when you're there
Yeah.
continually, you gotta push through it, because so it gets to a place you're trying to avoid, and then finally at the place say, listen, why are you doing this? This is doing this, this, and this. And so oftentimes what it did was, just as a wound, it brought some pain points. You're like, listen, stop that, man. And
Mm,
so why are you doing it? And they say, well, it's because you're always doing this. I said, well, why aren't you telling me that? I didn't know. I said, okay, I'll try to work on this. You try to work on that. But together, we're ultimately the same team. Let's drive. But when you do this, you make me feel like that. Or if I'm
right.
doing this, I'm offending you here. So, but in terms of tired of it, no. I actually look forward to it. We get off at 12:30, 1, 2. Sometimes I get off at 1 and they're still going. And they're spread all across the world, And the ones we wouldn't see in a regular. Some in Trinidad, some in Jamaica, some in England, some in the States. My brother, as I said, he's down in the States down there. I'm up here. So tired? Not at all. Not at all. It's really interesting.
I love that. I love that. I'm inspired by that. And if anybody's inspired by that, and if you're doing that, let us know your comments. Tell us what you're doing with your families as you're dealing with COVID. And the other thing that you've been up to in COVID is you like Black History Month. Tell us what that means to you and what you've been up to in Black History Month.
It's actually ironic. The older I get, the more entrenched I become in quote unquote my blackness, for lack of better terms.
Mm,
And so I've made it in the last, you know, as in an escalating scale to get more involved with our community. So when you talked about the quote unquote pinnacle according to society's norm as Black History Month, I'm getting
mm,
involved in a lot of events. I'm hosting quite a few. I'm helping to produce few. I'm helping to produce and working with ones trying to communicate and engage within this one, because it's really an opportunity to really have our history shine.
yeah,
Not
yeah.
history that's been put on us. Continually we've heard the same history and the same story. The story is written from a perspective that wasn't really an uplifting one. Growing up in
Mhm.
school in Canada, for example, I hated when they talk about Black history. I hated it because we hear
Really?
because all they were talking about, we were slaves and that we
Right.
were superior and they what they did to us. And like it's more than that. So
Mm,
I continued on and I went to a private school, and then not from the private school, I also went down to school in the States. And when I was over in those environments, it was a total different perspective because now we were starting to embrace our culture.
mm.
About,
Yeah, yeah.
Egypt isn't a foreign place. It's in Africa. They
Come on
describe it
now.
as a foreign place. When they talk about, when you started learning, your history and saying, well, where does geography come from? Where does math come
Mhm.
from? Where does calculus come from? Those are all coming from Africa. When you talk about the Nubian princesses and you talk about, where the history of the world started, and you start to recognize, listen, this was all African history. The world started outside of Ethiopia. How do you know that? Because you read Genesis, it says where the four rivers unite, and they still exist today. So when they start to understand and embrace your blackness, it becomes not a place of dear God. These women running around in huts and they're
Yeah.
naked and these snakes. It's not that at all. It's beauty. It's
It's
glorious.
rich.
It's
Yes.
phenomenal to be black. In the States, they embrace that so much more, man. And I think it's not because we are trying to avoid up here, but we were not taught it so much. We're taught
Mhm.
the spectrum of the same story. When you hear about the Black experience here, we were the end road for the slavery, for the
Yeah,
Underground
yeah.
Railroad. We hear of, the three people, the Harriet Tubman, and there's nothing wrong with that, and those stories, those narratives, but we're so much more. Look how we thrive. Look how we contributed to society. Look how our stories are not being told. And then the question makes you wonder, why isn't our stories deliberately told?
Come
Why
on
are
now.
we moving from it? And you start to understand that there's a deliberate effort. Well, they're deliberate effort because they're trying to change a certain perspective and we're educated a certain way. So the key is we've got to educate ourselves in a different way. And because if you don't, you're going to see what's happened in a lot of times now, where you have a lot of people within our community have self-hate. I'm going to, when I came back from the States, I went to school up here, I would go to school with some guys. And listen, love is a funny thing. It can catch you anywhere, right? And
Yeah,
I have,
yeah.
wherever love catch you, it catch you. That's your thing. But I would hear black guys say they don't date black women. I go, how can you say that? Like that mentality.
We got to talk about that, Anton. We got to talk about that.
There's something wrong. And again, don't misunderstand. As I said, love can catch you anywhere. But for anyone, any race to deliberately choose that they are not going to love their own, there's a problem there. That's victim of self-hate. And now you see in society where you have the Candace Owens, where people they have more affinity to the oppressor than those that are oppressed. Something happened to someone, well, he must have done something. It doesn't matter if he did anything. We talk about George Floyd and you have it mixed. You have part of the population sitting and saying, you know what, that's crazy. Then you have another part of the population within our own community saying, well, what did he do? Well, he shouldn't have done.
Yeah, yeah.
Does it matter whatever he did that it warrants that? And the part of the reason why it's come to that, because we've been psychologically conditioned for a thing called cognitive dissonance to sit down there and say, listen, let us change the perspective, that narrative that, your viewpoint, you are marginalized, and therefore they value the opinions and the thoughts and the mindsets of others. So when it comes to Black History Month and an opportunity to let our voice so shine, I love it. I absolutely love it. It's a long answer, but the truth be told, I love this experience. I love being black. I love blackness in all its forms, all of its forms. I'm a
You,
full 100% black man. Listen, don't get it twisted. Don't get sad telling people say you have funny eyes, Anton. Your hair is curly. Yeah, that may be so, but guess what? We come in all forms, and I love myself just the way I am.
we are twinning today because we got our curls, my brother. We got our natural curls are shining. And
I
listen,
know.
we didn't
I
even
know.
we didn't plan the outfit. Eh? We just ended up in blue together. I was going
You
to wear
did.
green, and the green outfit wasn't fitted. I'm just saying, COVID weight is real, and
All
so
right.
we pivoted to the blue. And like Donna Alexander is saying, oh, good one, Donna. It's called internalized racism, my brother. Come on
Yeah.
now.
Oh, see, you don't want to start me up on that can of
I
worms, do
want
you?
to start you. Let's go. Okay, so for those of you who don't know, well, you don't know, but now you know what you don't know. Anton James is the voice, and we're going to be collaborating. And you're going to get a taste on some of our collaboration right now. So the conversation has started. We're going in. So we're talking internalized racism. Now we're talking about the black brothers not loving on the black sisters. So go in. We're talking about black history and the richness of it and how we can be made to look like nothing when we really are something beautiful. We are beautiful people and it's all our history. So, Anton, when we talk, this is part of this. The reason why we're having this conversation tonight is we recognize that when we have conversations, it's great. So we're going in. We're going, whichever way it takes us, we're going in.
All right, listen, man. I'm ready to go. I'm ready to go. You
I
tell me.
know you're ready.
Give me a direction and say, let him go.
I'm
Let me go.
letting I'm letting you go. I'm letting you loose.
All
And
right.
Black history, and like you've also been doing stuff at the BBPA, but we'll go into that after. So
All
let's
right.
get into the internalized racism, my brother, as Donna
Yeah.
Alexander said.
You know what? The challenge be, so at the core, I'm a strategist, right? I've
Yeah.
always been a strategist. And internalized racism is really a deliberate and systemic effort to really suppress someone to become self-hate. So it's not that it happens by chance. It's done by deliberate. When I was growing up, I was fortunate. Um, I was fortunate because of my parents, my family, my upbringing, that I was anchored in self-confidence. Self-confidence in not conceit, but self-confidence, because the reality was that's not what was taught to me in school.
Mhm.
Taught to me in school was when I was growing up. I remember I had teachers telling me, you know what, you should go do a trade. I'm like, well, why should I do a trade? And they
Mm,
said, or they sit down there and they would talk about Africa. When you talk about Africa, they would sit down there and they would only you would see was the huts. You would see naked women. You would see them
mhm,
talk about that's their greatest weapons. They would
mhm,
talk about the Nigger River and all that type of stuff. And that perspective, it made it such that we were almost ashamed of our background, that there was nothing there to uplift. Then they would automatically pivot to, they talk about the royalty of castles and the duke this and sir so forth. And I'm like, wait a second. And then so you understand, that's very high level, but you understand why there's a
mhm,
certain belief system. Heard, you watch the shows in media, and media, although sometimes it gets on my nerves, it's indicative of part of the problems. You have some. I remember this one on Dr. Oz, this one black girl swearing she wasn't black, and she hated everything black. Well, why
mm,
is it's because you're taught that. I remember I was in grade 2 once, and they said to write color a picture, and they said I want flesh tone, and the thing they gave me was peach, and I said that's not my flesh tone. I said can I have brown, and they go no, that's not flesh tone. I said no, that's my flesh tone, and they told me
mm.
no, that's not right. Just use that. Don't worry about it. Don't worry about it. It doesn't matter. Does that really
Wow.
matter? Or they talked about Jesus, he's white. I said, well, how could that be white? You sit down there, you understand certain things. Things don't make sense. I said, the reality is what you're telling me doesn't make sense. And then I got older, my brain, my brain works different than other people. When I was younger, I didn't understand. I didn't understand why my brain, I couldn't do what other people did, and my brain would absorb differently. In classes, the teachers they didn't like me because I wasn't paying attention. But then the problem was they would be aggravated because when it was time to do tests, I did great in the tests because there's certain things that especially in math and
Yeah,
science,
yeah.
plus 2 equals 4. I don't care whether you like me or not.
Yeah.
It's 4. They'd be aggravated because I would be always asking questions. Growing up in the church, you sit down, then you hear certain
Mhm.
diameters, and you're like, but some don't make sense, man. You
That's
some
right.
they talk about just for. I hate to go down this diatribe, but it just came to my brain.
I'll rail you in if you have to. I'll rail you in if you have to.
Okay,
Come on
okay. Well, going into public school, you hear them talk about Christianity, and
now.
don't get twisted. I'm brought up in the church, raised in church,
Yeah.
left a few
Yeah.
times, but I'm definitely church. But they were talking about in public school, they were talking about this white Jesus. I said that don't make sense.
Come on
That
now.
story doesn't make sense.
Come on
I said,
now.
you study it. You study it. And I remember in Genesis, the 4 rivers, and Pishon, the Tech. I said, where they actually are. And they said, okay. Then you hear the story. The wise men came from the east. Where's the east? Well, the east, that's really in Persia. That's Persia. So it didn't happen how this story hit. And you start to recognize there's holes here. Some don't make sense. And I
And that's why history is important, Anton, because if you don't understand history, if you don't geography, okay, let's geography and history are important.
You listen, man. You asked me, so I'm telling you about the history now. So I went to school in the States, and I was pre-law, so I was going pre-law, specializing in marketing strategy and history. So history was doing that, and then I went into politics side. But when I would sit down there, I would understand certain things. Why is it everything that was positive black was written out? So these wise men that came, where they came from? They came from Media and Persia. What were they? These wise men were black men. They were black. And
rich black men, rich black men.
Not only minorly rich, they were significantly rich, such that it was. And when they travel, even the stories in which they're making up, it wasn't like that.
Yeah.
They came down, and this is getting back to the black side, because I really want to make that pivot, because the question you really asked me is, why is there self-hate? And I'm trying to get to that, but I got to give you the ground.
Perspective. The other key word. We got to get perspective and the pivot. Come on.
No problem.
Okay.
So when you sit down there and say, well, first of all, there was no time that the shepherds and the wise men were at the same time. That didn't happen. The reality was the wise men came 2 years later. And how do you know that? You know that for a couple of reasons. One, they followed the star by night. They came from Persia, which was over 800 miles away. You can't, and the fast speed they're running, they're going by camel, because they came, and that's how they came. At top speed, it would take them at least 8 months to make it across, and they're falling at night, so they can only run at nighttime. So the narrative, but that's not really the problem. What it is, the problem is why I'm bringing that to the forefront is, one, they were black men that came over, and two, they gave gifts. They gave the gifts of gold, frankincense, and myrrh, among other things. But that's just leave it right there. When they started talking about this story, and every time they talk about the story, they made these glorious white swaddling baby. And I said, that's just not right. That's just not right. And I would ask, well, why is he looking like that? And I said, okay, well, then it happened 2 years later. And I said, well, then, where did he go after? And why did he go? Well, at that point, Herod said, okay, you know what? He tried to coerce the black men, the wise men, to tell him where he was and go back. When it didn't happen, what did he do? He put a death decree. Any child under the year of 2 and under. Why 2? Because it was about 2 years. That's the period why. Second of all, I say, now when that happened, where did they go? Well, they fled into where? Into Egypt. So this is why it's significant. So if he fled into Egypt, if you're a white person into Egypt, the reason why we know what the Egyptians were made of, they were sitting down there. When the French general came in under Berthier, he went into Egypt. What did he do? He blew the nose off the Sphinx. Why? Because they were black noses. He didn't blow the heads off them. He blew the noses off them. When you look at the hieroglyphics, what are their black individuals? They try to make Egypt sound like it's a different place. Now, they said that he went into the place to hide because he's running from Pharaoh. So if he was a white child, could he hide? Would he hide in a place that's totally different? No.
Come on now.
Well, then that's telling you that there's something ain't right. Something's not right in that narrative that's actually being told. I can go down and break that down into more, but why that relates to us today is we've been told to hide within our society. And we don't have to. Why are we hiding? The reality is, why are we hiding our culture and the way we do things and the way we speak? And some people, they're afraid of, if they come from Nigeria, they're fufu. Eat your fufu, man.
Eat your peanut soup and stop being ashamed.
100%. I remember going to class. There was this one boy. My name is Olawufo. I couldn't pronounce his last name, and they said, let's just call you Olo. But when Schwarzenegger came in from Poland, they pronounced his name.
Come
They
on
pronounced
now.
it in
Come
his.
on now.
I'm like, well, those small little parallelisms started to grate me. Now, as I said, as I progressed in public school, it became more and more apparent. I went to private school, it was different because there, I remember I had for the first time, I had a black teacher. This teacher was, I'm going to tell you, teachers, but I had one particular one that was brilliant. He was so brilliant that he was teaching the course on how to develop new math formulas. Brilliant.
Right.
When you go down to the States, the experience was now different. When you start talking to him now, you start to understand that our place, our view, our value is not in what we are. Our history is not slavery. Slavery is a part that
Come on.
happened to us. But it wasn't, they said, well, you guys did to yourself, you sold into slavery. Yes, there was slavery, but there's always been slavery in every culture. In North American, in European, in Portuguese, but the slavery that was done is a different form. There was never been before the slavery where we were ripped of our family units, ripped of our languages. And I mean deliberately ripped of our language, ripped of our culture, of our religions, our so forth. So then we were put this viewpoint on as what was great, and everything that was us was bad. So then you have the field, lack of better terms, Negroes, I'll use the word, versus the house niggers. Sorry, Negroes. And that's
what they called it. Come on now, but that's what they called it.
Real.
Let's keep it real.
But that mentality has continued to today, where you have people saying, okay, let's maintain this caste system. At least I am not them. And that's the underlying pitting of this self-hate. At least I'm not them. So you have those that are even part of the them don't want to be the them. Because you've never heard, listen, I remember I was dating this one girl. I was in the States once, man. I tell you, this one girl, let me tell you, she was sweet. Her family was from Toga. I mean, her skin was black like, oh, it was black on ebony. And I thought she was absolutely stunning. And I said, well, I said, I was young. I'm the young. I said, listen, I'm stepping to her. I'm going to make my shot. Go take my shot. And I went up, listen, I said, hey, how you doing? And she turned to me. And this was the first time it really got to me personally. She said, you know what? No, she says, you're a nice guy and you're a little cute, but, you ain't really a black man, because when they look at you, you don't have the same problem that I do.
Wow.
And then she said, the blacker the berry, the sweeter the juice.
Excusez-moi, s'il vous plaît. Come on. And you know what? The funny thing is, that's a statement that is so made, but when you listen and you think about it, how insultive it is.
Yeah.
To all black people who come in many hues. Okay, go on with the story.
And I said, that was my thing. I'm like, listen, my girl. I'm like, listen, the hue of my skin, they don't look at me and say, hey, brownish, for lack of better terms, I'll use Negro. They don't say brownish Negro to me. And straight-eyed Negro to you, or dark-skinned Negro to you, and skinny Negro, and we're all Negro. And it ain't Negro. We ain't Negro. I'm just trying to be kind for your viewing audience. So we've got to be. Why are you buying into the platitude that's been put on you? Why are you blooding to that perception?
The whole skin color thing. And you know what? I'll encourage anybody who's listening to the live or on the replay. Hope you're enjoying this conversation with my brother Anton James, the voice, the marketing guru, and I almost let the cat out of the bag too soon. Anyhow, and Dark Girls by Dee Chansonberry. If you ever heard of that movie and you've never watched it, I encourage you to watch it. It talks about the complexion. Oprah promoted it, and you never know, he might be coming on to the show soon. So hey. One nugget dropped. When he comes on, we're just trying to find a date to bring him on here to drop some nuggets, because he's working on some new projects, and we're going to be talking about that. And we had a great conversation the other day. But when we start talking about dark girls, the skin complexion, our identity, it's this breaking down of our identity, and we're in such an identity crisis as Black people. And as people of color. It's so interesting because, the other day we were in Clubhouse, and I ended up in a room, and there was this conversation. We had some Canadians on there, and it wasn't the room that we were in. And they were talking about, in the US, using people of color and versus black, and what it means here in Canada. And then when you go to England, what it means, it's a different thing to call yourself black in England. And so, and then white people or non-black people don't know what to call us, because there's such this division within our own race as what do we call you? What's politically correct? That it's a hot mess.
Yeah.
A hot mess, Anton.
For sure, for sure. And I actually want to get into that because that is part of the problem that was definitely once in my professional realm. But it's pervasive because the challenge basically is it's all done under the same thing. You go to the Caribbean, you go other places, and light skin will get certain jobs, certain preferences, certain. They don't hear them say they're black like what? No, they don't say they're white like.
High color, high
Yeah,
color,
yeah.
high color. Yeah.
In my family, I won't lie to you. I'm not the lightest one in my family. I'm one of the more darker ones. And some people say certain things. I'm like, that's foolishness. It's all foolishness. But I get on to say this. We've been taught and we've been brainwashed because we don't value what we have. We don't value who we are because we don't know who we are. Colorism only became prevalent in the 1500s, and that was a deliberate construct to divide those with money from those that didn't have money. Prior to that, there was blacks, but it wasn't relevant. It was more relevant of which country you came from, or your land of origin, because they were trying to sit down there. The white ruling class of the land were trying to separate the white poor and the blacks. So let's again come back to that caste system. Let's make the whites with no money and no land feel that they're above them. And that's when races started coming in. The 1800s, they started using false signs, say, skull sizes and a whole bunch of other foolishness to actually go through. But it's predominant today where there's some individuals that believe they can't get success unless they're united with someone else that's not of their culture. And that's males and females, a lot of females, because a lot of them been taught, it's a challenge, man, because when you're in a system and the system has taught to disenfranchise the males from society, to disenfranchise and put them in a particular position and elevate, well, one, it is take out the Bible, take out the strong man, and the house will fall. That's biblical. But when you take that and you take it to social cultural cycles, you take out the strong man, then you have the women, which you have a lot of single parents bringing up. Yep. And those women are brought up, and that's great. But then you educate those ones, and now the educated women can't relate to the man that's been brought out. That divides it even worse. And then so who do they relate to? They relate to ones that are like them. So they're now join themselves to ones that are not like. And then they sit down, they look down upon theirs that's been put in a place not because of what they do, but because of what's going on to them. It's problem. It's definitely a problem. I can go into the shadism of it. It really bothers me as an individual. Yeah. So I try to sit down there and confront it straight on. Anyways, I want to pivot because I don't want to wait too much time on that one. You brought something up there in work. So in work, I saw it, and that's where I saw it. It was terrible. You have to be personally grounded in your strength of an individual. When I went to
and your identity, yep.
Yeah, I went to States, or as I said, I went to school originally in the States, and I came back after there. I went to U of T, and after U of T, I got recruited straight into UPS.
Right.
And when I was there, I was one of the four-man part of their strategic business planning team, which basically means I sat down there with all the C-levels, and I would understand what their vision is, what they want the company to be.
You were in the C-suites. You were in the C-suites, Anton.
I said I was in but that's who I engaged. So I would understand what they were. I'm a strategist, right? So my brain, it's kind of like how I play piano. I can't read any notes, but if you put me in front of a piano, I'll play it because that's the way my brain actually works. The key is for us to understand how we naturally work. If you can really break down your brain, ideally, if you know NLP, neuro linguistic programming, you know that the brain is comprised of 4 parts, 4 quadrants. The left side is logic, the right side is emotions. If you know how to really tag your brain into what you do, you can excel. And the reality, God was kind to me. So my brain has always been analytical, it's always been strategic. Anyways, long story, when I went to UPS, I got brought in there as one of 4-man part of the strategic planning teams. They say, okay, you know what? We want to make $300 million. We want to increase our product. We want blah, 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 blah.
Right.
Them, I would understand their viewpoints. From there, I would make strategies in order to implement that. Then I would work with cross-functional teams and all the different departments to kind of roll it out and develop problems. So you would have that. Now I was in UPS Canada, and at the time there was 5,000 employees. Only five had power, any form of, and I'm saying power for lack of better terms.
Mm-hmm.
But then you would see stuff like this. You would see the black man sitting down there. He'd have an assistant. The assistant, they'd promote the assistant to become his boss. You would hear, he does something wrong. They would, they would chop, 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 chop. But he did
Wow.
something right. All his bosses get credit for him. You don't even hear his name. And I go,
Right.
why is that happening? You'd go up through, and I would left there, and I went into other environments and other industries, and I would travel. I traveled to Canada, U.S., Europe,
Mm-hmm.
and you wouldn't see a lot of blacks in power, and the ones that would, it was a very clear divide. You'd either
Right.
see that they either gravitate to you, or they pretend like they don't even see you.
See you.
I'm like, there is 10,000 people here. There is only 50 of us. When you pass by, you can't stop saying what's up, or you give a smile.
And that fear of competition, because it's the fear of the competition. And what if that's a whole conversation. We're getting all the conversations for our show, my friend. Go ahead.
Well, see now, and that's the problem. That's it. They were seeing you where I'm like, listen, man, I'm brother, I know what you've got to be here to get to this level. So I'm so happy to see you, man. If I can support you, let me know. Let me
Yeah.
know how we can work together. But others would see it as, yo, there's only room for one of us in this company, or in this room, or this audience. I want to be the one, and therefore discredit you. So you'd have your own brother attacking you. I'm like, well, why? So that's part of that problem. And so when we talk about the pervasive systemic uh, racism, man, it manifests itself in so many ways. I can go on and on and on, but as I said, I don't want to side rail too much.
Yeah. And I think this is one of the things that we have to talk about. How do you manage yourself? And this marketing piece, right? So marketing while colored. That's going to be a topic. I'm telling you.
Well,
So if you haven't figured it out yet, The Voice and The Voice of Victory are going to do some collaborations, and we're going to do some shows together. And if you're feeling that, if you like that, let us know. Drop us some heart. Drop us some comments.
love it.
Let us know the topics you want to talk about.
Yeah,
Not just be doing it here on Facebook. You got to stay tuned to the social media, because if you're in Clubhouse, we're going to be having some sick conversations in Clubhouse. Clubhouse is going to be a big platform for us, where we're going to be vibing up in Clubhouse. But if you think those conversations are going to be valuable to you, let me know in the comments if you're live and on the replay, because we're going in. I'm like, love it. Marketing while black. I'm writing that one down, Anton.
I tell
Marketing
you
while
that,
black.
man, that one I could speak to. I could speak to the ends. Marketing as while black. It's you growing up, you'd always hear the same thing. I'd hear the same thing by my folks. You got to be 10 times as good just to be considered equal, and so forth. And
Mm-hmm.
when you excel in certain aspects and you were doing well, oftentimes what was happening was my bosses were taking credit for it. When things was, as I told you before, when things were going bad, it was him. He did it.
Yeah.
But you get to certain. I went to a certain one. I pivoted to another company after I left UPS and so forth, and went to a startup company. It was startup. There was nothing there before.
Mm-hmm.
So I said, okay, they had this view, and you'd present your view, and they would always second guess. Well, I'm not sure. You may see things differently. I'm like, well, listen, man. At the end of the day, I'm a strategist. I'm based upon data and numbers.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Numbers they don't see color. I can tell you what basically it is. And I built. Long story. I built a strategy. I built marketing. I did it, and I fed opposition all the way through. But we did exceedingly. Long story became one of Canada's fastest growing company. And when I went to one of the trips, they said, well, how are you doing this? How are you beating these big national players? Well, one, I'm going to say, yeah, it's just because I'm a strategy analyst. But I say God was kind. I'll be honest with you.
Yeah.
Some of the stuff I can't claim credit for, but I can say that, God's given me a brain that works a particular way. Anyways, I go to one of the things because we did well. They invited me to I remember an award. One was down in Paris. Another one was in Denver. And the biggest one was in Geneva, Switzerland. I was in the United Nations. I was in this, you walk into the council there. And when they hear, and we had a conference after, and they hear they're announcing your company and what they're doing, and they big presentation and you're clap, 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 and then you walk on and also just clap.
Because they heard Anton James and they're thinking, oh, not
Well,
that guy.
that's it. Or you go in there and they talk about your company, they talk about what you've done, they talk about this, and when you walk up, they say, okay, where's your boss? Or you're in certain scenarios, and I remember I was going to a hotel, and I'm in the hotel, and I remember it was nice. It was a very nice hotel,
Yeah.
and I didn't even know who it was. It was he was anyways, a big celebrity, and he says he asked me. I said to him, "Can you press the button?" And he says, "Oh," he said, "I don't." When he turned to me, just assumed, "No, I don't give autographs." I said, "Good, me neither. I don't either." Press the button for him. That's all I was asking. I was tapping on his shoulder to say, "Listen, can you press the button?"
Oh God.
But it's a natural
Stop it.
something that it's true.
Stop
The
it.
only place I was treated the best, I won't lie, in the entire world was Geneva, Switzerland. The reason why, because there's blacks there, and they didn't know if I was a prince, whether it was an ambassador,
Right.
or they just didn't know. So that's the first time you're treated where color, it was actually an advantage because they didn't know. So they assumed you were great because why would you be
Let's
here?
be here.
Yeah.
I think that's why sometimes even like growing up in the Caribbean and growing up in Africa, you are accustomed to having leaders. Like when I look back, growing up in Trinidad, my aunt, my mom's oldest sister, was one of the, if not the first, black woman in Parliament, and she did significant work in her tenure, and so we grew up with black leaders. Like our first prime minister, 25 years, Dr. Eric Williams, 25 years. Imagine, and it's not a dictatorship. It wasn't a dictatorship, knowing like we have a president that's black in Trinidad, and we're like, yeah. Now, can you imagine that in the US? Can you imagine a black prime minister in Canada? Now, let's dream a minute. Okay, dream over. But it's interesting how that is, and depending on really where you grew up, the narrative. And I'm loving the conversation. If you guys are loving the conversation and we're getting some comments here, I'm going to drop some of the comments here. Some of the things we have touched. Joan Pierre, hey Joan, we operate in a crab in a barrel mentality, and we have so many folks that cannot let go of it and just support each other. That's what I'm talking about. And this is why you have to know who your iron sharpeners are. You have to know who will lift you up and pull you down. You have to know that when you are now, so you've been in like so many different levels in your life, and it's having to figure out who is for you,
Yeah,
and who's not for you.
that's for
And you're
sure.
always going to have a Judas, but you just got to know. For me, this is my perspective, and tell me yours. At least if I know who my Judas is, I know what to expect. I don't have to necessarily kick my Judas out of camp, because even Jesus had a Judas, but you have to understand the role of your Judas, and who's your John, and who's your Peter, and who's your Anton, and who's your Joan Pierre, and who's your Wendy Jones. You know what I'm saying? Who's your Serena Wills?
Yeah.
Who's your Sarah Oyango? Who's your Gloria Small? Who are those people in your life that you can call in crisis? We had a conversation today, and Serena was saying, her grandmother said to her, who your people are in death and in sickness. That was so huge, so huge for us. Okay, so I'm talking again. See, I get carried away. I'm so excited talking to Anton James. This is why I'm going to do a show together. Serena says, I remember visiting South Africa in the year 2000, and they called darker skinned blacks as Africans, and lighter like me were considered colored. One bus driver didn't want to let myself and my friend on a bus he was driving because we were colored. We weren't dark like him. And he said that. Wow. He said we weren't really black. Isn't that amazing?
Yeah. It's
What has been done to our race?
That's colonialism, man. That's colonialism right there. What you even talked about there. So I grew up in Canada, and I remember growing up, and the only time you would see successful blacks, quote unquote, was on TV, and they were talking about, a lot of them they would say they were drug dealers, or they saw these fancy cars. They had to be this, was an exception. And I remember as a kid, my folks said, okay, my mom took me and said, listen, we're going to go on a trip. She took me down to Maryland. And it blew my mind. It absolutely blew my mind, because I looked around and I saw, I just couldn't understand what I saw. Everyone was black, men, and those
Right.
And they were, I mean, these weren't an exception. They were the doctors, they were the lawyer, they were the
Yeah.
firemen, they were and it was exception. And I said, well, wait a second here. Something is different. And it means, you know what, particularly to young, it means so much to make a connection that there is something there, that you are not this changing this mentality to embrace this other. It means so
Mm-hmm.
much. Because to me, at that point, I recognize it ain't true.
Mm-hmm.
It's not
Mm-hmm.
true. I don't have to be the exception. You know what? I gotta be just me one. No, I can bring the whole community up. And so from then I say, you know what? I want to embrace blackness. I want to embrace my music. I want to embrace our culture. Don't get twisted. There's a lot of music I don't like. I don't like
Sure.
some of the hardcore. I
Come
don't
on.
like it. But I gotta say, just as I've got a right to have my opinion, so do they've got theirs. But we've got to be able to embrace that. We've got to be able to have that conversation. We have that conversation with all of them, because it will change us as a people. We have such great destiny in front of us, man, if we're able to understand the Judases are. Because the reality is, the Judases oftentimes, it's because of that mentality. The Judases are the ones that are closest to you, the ones that they'll be with you when you're down. But that's not the problem. It's when you're up. When they're down, they'll come around and they'll support you, man. But when you're rising back up and doing well, all of a sudden they're like, "Where are you, man? Where are you?" I heard you always hear the other way around, when you're great and you're on top of the world. Yeah, but they can't do damage to you. And all of a sudden they're like, "Listen, man, I'm trying to bring you up. When you were down, man, I was there with you. Why are you coming against me? Like, why am I not hearing from you?" And that part, you've really got to be able to understand the dynamics of circle, and surround yourself with not people that just look like you and think like you. You got to surround yourself with the people that are based of choleric, melancholic, sanguine, and phlegmatic personalities. Because
Hey, hold on. Slow that down. The iron sharpeners look like what?
so so
Call those things again, please. Slowly.
so the brain, the difficulty is most people try to surround themselves with people that think and act just like them.
Mm-hmm.
But we as a people, as an example, we weren't taught generational wealth. We weren't taught generational systems. So if you hang with people that are just like you, I'm not talking about color now, I'm talking about mindset,
Yes, yes.
then you are only going to get where they got. You've got to be able to expand and beyond, because each personality has a brain lead. So the brain lead is, so in my marketing and strategy, what I'd use is called neuro linguistic programming. I love it, because what it does, it teaches you how your natural brain is inclined towards. So you'll know some people are inclined more towards systems, and they're very black and white. And you give them a system and the process, and they'll do that to the best. They'll do it every day. They won't change. They don't like color. They don't like difference. Compliance, that's their thing. They love it. You have other people that are cholerics, and those are called melancholics. You have other people that are called cholerics, and they're the ones that like to be their boss, like to be in charge, like to organize things, like to drive things forward, and they're great too. You have people that are what are called sanguine.
Sanguine.
Sanguine. Those
Okay.
are the more colorful, creative. They always thinking different. They're on top of life. They change things up. They're thinking outside the box. And then you have the phlegmatics who like to sit down there and likes to tie everyone together. If you stick within one of those personalities, you can be great, but you can never be that great because you can't reach the other sides. So you've got to be able to identify who you are, so who you are first, and then recognize what your deficits are. And because each one of those personality types have strengths and deficits, if you can recognize where your strengths are and your deficits, you can build a team, because the world doesn't survive. We as people aren't meant to be alone. They said, growing up, they say it takes a village to raise a child. It really does, because in that village, there was the rulers, the leaders. They would have the aunties and the uncles. You'd have the bad breed cousins, them, and you'd have the ones that are, and you would have to learn to protect, to guide, to adjust. And you would learn that by hearing the whole multitude. So when you're building a team, you got to make sure you have that in there. Now, in there, once you have the full team around you, you'll be able to recognize much easier who's the Judas, because you will recognize how they're operating. They're operating in accordance to a certain brain type. And a brain type will tie back to them. And someone else is in your team, someone that's in your team will be able to recognize that brain type even faster than you can. But you've got to be able to be open and come from a place where you're brain type and you are open and you're vulnerable to a team. Because if you're not vulnerable and you're always good, like we've been taught to say, you're good. Then no, how you do it before you even finish asking, my leg is bleeding, I'm half amputated. Oh, I'm great. No, have a real conversation. When you can do that, when you get to a place of vulnerability, then that's the place you can start to put at a setback to grow.
Okay. If y'all ain't writing this stuff down, I don't even think you can write everything down, Anton James, because you broke down personality types. Now, I've done Myers-Briggs and all. I've never heard. Listen, you're stretching me tonight, my friend.
Well,
You are stretching me tonight. Yeah, I think you're stretching all of us. We just even need a show just on this. In fact, I feel like we need a course. We're going to do like a Zoom meeting on this one where you're going to come into class with Anton, and we might do the first one free, but not all of them gonna be free. I'm just saying, because Anton's got some kids to feed. I've got some kids to feed.
well,
We got families, we gotta eat. But listen here, if you can learn to market yourself and understand who you are and understand your identity and understand the people around you,
yeah.
you are set up for success. To me, you just answered the question, and I'm going to ask it to you in a hot minute. Look, Dr. Vibe is like fire. Serena's like class in session.
Yeah, that's silly. Yeah, that's silly.
But these is like learning and teaching generational wealth within our community is so important. Yes, it is.
Absolutely correct. Well, again, I want to tie the two together because here's
Come on
here's
now.
part of the reality. The reality is, so me being in the corporate realm, because I was the one that was recruited out as a whiz kid. I was on attack always because so my career started off, and it happened all the way through my career. By the way, I've had to bring court, sessions into the court, but that's not the point. Is you're always under attack. And so you had to quickly learn. And we as a people, a lot of us don't recognize we have that skill. We just don't know how to classify it because you had to quickly assess the people in a room very quickly and understand who they were, how their brain worked, and how to respond to them very quickly to either defend yourself or get something in from them, or whether it's a positive meaning or engagement. So you have to be able to quickly, you talk about Myers-Briggs. There's a Myers-Briggs is a disc, and the disc there's DISC.
Mhm.
Something very, very terse and right to the point, and the others are very talkative. One likes to be, everyone to be social. One likes to analyze. You've got to be able to do that because when you're able to quickly go into a room and say, listen, I'm dealing with someone that's a high D or someone that's an S or someone that's choleric, someone melancholic, I'll present differently to them because it's systems. Listen, everything happens. The reason why you look at it's systems that make progress. We've been taught to be individuals. What do they teach us growing up in the West Indies? And this is what it gets to generational wealth. They've taught us to go to school, get a good education, become a
Mhm.
general. That's not correct. That's not correct. They teach us to be employees, not employers. They taught us to run the system to make them wealthy, but that's not what they've done. When I
Mhm.
went to, I want to take a little back. I'm so sorry for sidetracking.
Do not apologize.
When I was with the startup company, so I made these guys a lot of money because that's what I do. I'm a strategist, right? So I'd make them a whole heap of money. Now I'm embarrassed to tell you this, but there was a month that the stock market made a dip, and the company was owned by three brothers, and they lost $20 million each. Now me, it was like I was almost an Uncle Tom was like, what's
Mhm.
we gonna do, boss? Are we gonna be alive? And I remember, I'm cracking joke, but I remember when he turned to me and he said, "Man, no convertible this year." I said, "No convertible this year? $20 million in 1 month you lost, and your only response is $20 million." We went up going on, and again, we traveled a lot. So I was with the president of the company, and because I was setting up their strategies and their departments and their blah 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 blah. Um, I travel with them. And so he talked to me. I remember one time he had this conversation with me. He says, Anton, you know what? Um, money doesn't work for me the way it works for you. And I thought he was saying from a point of, he was trying to insult me. I go, man, what do you mean by that? And he goes, no, no, Anton, don't misunderstand it. It's not meant as an insult. He goes, Anton, you make me a lot of money, so I want to show you how to make me more. And he goes, Anton, listen, if you had $1 million, for example, what would you do? And so I can pretty much tell you, well, if you have $1 million, you're going to start off, you'll probably lose the first 400,000 to taxes. And then by the time you're turning, you'll probably end up having maybe about 450, 470 in my pocket. And then you'll buy all your flattery stuff. And I said, okay, so why are you saying that? He says, well, Anton, for that same $1 million, I would maybe, and this is all legal, Anton, maybe if I want to make them feel right, I'd maybe give them $60,000 to $80,000 in taxes. Maybe if I want to make them just so. He goes, Anton, because there's systems, Anton, you don't know. And I go, what do you mean I don't know? He goes, well, no, Anton, you would set up a corporation that's based here. You set a secondary one that's based in Bahamas or in British Virgin Islands. You run the revenue through here. And they would start showing me systems, how things work.
Wow.
We as people, we weren't brought up with multi-generational wealth.
Yes.
We don't know those systems. So what I'm trying to say is, in order to make real generational wealth, you see, there's a difference between rich and wealth. Rich is you inherit money, but look at a lot of the guys, professional athletes. Within 5 years, 30% are gone bankrupt and broke. You see guys who win the lottery, 30% go bankrupt and broke. Why? Because they're not taught system. And there's a system of analyzing who you're engaging and also building things to actually overcome them and to move together as a family unit. So when we talk about passing on to our children, it's great if you pass on $1 million to your children. If they don't know what they're doing, what do you think they're going to do? They're going to buy 10 cars, they're going to fly their friends all over, and within 6 years, they're done. No, you want to teach them how to make money. How does a system work where you can actually enhance? And you don't go to school to become an employee. You go to school to buy the company out. You want to buy the company. You can bring. Why are you spending $500,000 in education just to go and go for a $40,000 job that they are trading? I don't care what they're paying you. If they're paying you $200,000, $400,000. I know guys that make $400,000 and they're broke. Why? If they're paying you that, just understand the concept. Whatever they're paying you, it's because they're making at least 3 to 4 times on you. So the key is understand how to do that. And the key is we as a people weren't taught that. We weren't taught the system. We weren't taught how to analyze. We weren't even taught how to think. You hear a man come out and, you had the conversation in school. If you got 100,000, you do, man, buy a car. Yes, man, I buy it clean. I'm like, my brethren, Mark Zuckerberg, he has a mortgage on his house. These guys, why do you think they do that? Because listen, just a thought, but you have 100,000, I'll pay off loans, I'll do this, and I feel good. Then at least I will have nothing to worry about. I go, you pay off all your loans, and then what you're going to do? Then tell me how you're going to pay your bills, because now you're house rich, but you got a penny in your pocket. So to avoid the headache of paying 2% on your money, you're going to lose on the opportunity of making 20% on your money. Take the 20%, take 2 of those percent, pay that interest, and still have 18% of wealth coming in. You see, but we weren't taught to think that way. We weren't taught that. We were taught, be a good employee, and you're good. That work. That alone.
And then 30 years later, they give you a hey.
Not even now. Not even anymore. We're the first. We're the last in, first out, and we don't even get to the golden handshake and the golden. We don't even get that anymore. So we're going on a paradigm or on a strategy that has changed. It's like the men. When Industrial Revolution coming through, I don't care how great your horse and buggy is. I don't care how strong your horse is, because that horse can't compete against my tractor. And we're taught how to think, have the horse and buggy when they're moving forward in the tractor. We will never catch up. So as I'm saying, we've got to really challenge how we see things, how we engage people, how we understand, how we position ourselves differently, and how we move forward. The difficulty is, while we are pivoting, we're still in a culture that is where we've got to come to them for resources. So we got to figure that out. We got to figure out how do we do that better. Sorry for a sidetrack.
You don't need to apologize. And I'm just telling you, we already have 2 people ready to sign up for the course. Serena and Joan are on. They're like, I'm signing up now. And they're not joking. I'm in that class in a hurry, because when you're navigating this landscape and marketing you, And this is what, our conversation was really zesting as we were talking. What were we gonna to team our conversation? But really, our tagline is, what are we talking today about? What are we going to talk about today, Anton?
Yeah.
This is our vibe.
Yeah.
And you see how it just happens. I could have a slew of questions for Anton's. I could have a slew of ideas for Anton, and it just generates organically. And I am just grateful for everybody that's tuning in tonight and taking in the conversation. We're talking about race. We're not even tackling it. We're talking about race. We're talking about a culture. And it started with Black history. What does Black history really mean? And we have to continue some of that as we continue to talk about Black history. And I know, Anton, you've been really good in this last era of Black History Month. You've been hosting some events, and you would think Anton and I have known each other. Actually, we do. Let me reverse that. We've known each other for years, but we haven't been in contact with each other for years. And so the 6 degrees of separation brought us back together in our friendship. And this is the beauty of it. When you've known, like, we didn't realize how far back it went. And sometimes history is important. Your email history is important. And I was able to trace that we met each other first in 2006. And it could have even been before that, but that's as far back that I can trace it. And we've been having these really inspiring, invigorating conversations. And Anton interviewed me for a special at the BBP and the Black Health Alliance. And now you're doing some really wonderful work hosting, being the host and interviewing some significant people. Just give people a taste of when does the series end? Is it finished already, or is it still going on?
No, so we're doing a series of. There's a few series that we're actually doing. One is called Financial Literacy Masterclass. And what that really is, it's helping Black-led business making that transition. Again, because we are found to be the last in, first out, that our community has been disproportionately hurt by the pandemic and the close down. So at the BBPA, they built a program. What that program is to help companies transition, not just transition in theory, because oftentimes we have the Kiyosaki, Robert Kiyosaki tells you what's wrong, but doesn't tell you how to do it. What they actually do, they put a program together, and I'm on the host for it, and it navigates them and it tells them exactly. It takes them all aspects. Okay, listen. Let's look at the economy. Let's look at setting up a business. Let's look at getting finance. Let's look at taxation. Let's look at the various aspects of setting up a business and running it through. So the first 2 weeks, we say, let's look at the economy. Let's look at the economy. Is this good for what industries? And so I interviewed the head economist for HSBC. The second week, I interviewed the Deputy General for the Bank of Canada to give a landscape of, listen, the economy is doing this. This from a government perspective, this is what we're going to roll out over the next 6 to 9 months.
Can you say what some of those interviews, Anton? Did they record any of those interviews that we can go back and listen to them?
You know what? A lot are being recorded. Some of them cannot. Unfortunately, one of them we cannot, and I'm going to tell you why. Because speaking of racial things, we got actually hacked. We got hacked. And that was what the Deputy General of Bank of Canada and Deputy Governor of the Bank of Canada, and they wrote into it, and someone hacked it, nigger, and they put on his presentation.
Oh my God!
So some of those aren't. But so I had a conversation with him again, and I pulled him out. I wrote an email to him, and he wrote me back, and we're actually bringing him back. So
good.
While we don't have record of all of them, particularly that one, I know we can't, and I don't know some of them we can't because organizations don't want them to be recorded. So we can't. There is definitely some that continues to go forth that we do have online, and it's a 14-part series. So I said the first 2 weeks we talked about the economy. I did the head economist for HSBC, Bank of Canada. Then we talked about setting up a corporation. As a Black people, we're taught, we have a hustle that we just make into a business. Well, no, you don't run business like that, man. And therefore, why is that a problem? Well, you have a hustle that you've now made the business, but when the SERB and all these things came out, you didn't qualify. Well, you didn't qualify because you don't know the system. You don't know how the system actually works. You don't know how they're looking. So we brought in lawyers to say, okay, these are the type of corporation you do. Do you do an incorporation? Do you do a sole proprietorship? Do you do not-for-profit? And here why. Does not-for-profit mean that you make no money? No, not at all. Some not-for-profits are very wealthy. They can, but you have to understand the system. Then you sit there, we pivoted. We talked about, last week we talked about the Minister of Small Business Affairs and Red Tape Reduction. And we talked about, listen, you know what? And I challenged him. I said, the honest truth is, I love the fact that you're giving us these loans programs and these grant programs. That's great. That's only one side of business. The business isn't just giving us more opportunity to access debt. How about you access opportunities to get us more business? How do we get into
Mm,
contracts with the federal government? How do we reduce some of those criteria that is holding us back? Why is it that we as Black people aren't being qualified? Well, is it part of education, part of that there's roadblocks that the company has to be incorporated for the last 20 years and have shareholders? That doesn't reflect our community. How do we change that? We challenge them on that. And so that's
that's
part of the next.
good.
Then we sit down, we bring to the next level. Okay, now you start to make money. If you start to make money, what do you do with it? What are the things you have to look from a tax perspective? It's not just when you start getting over a certain point, it's not much how much you make, it's now how much you keep. It doesn't matter. You hear guys talk about, I make 100 toes and I make
Yeah.
120. That's okay. But it's irrelevant because you're only taking home $70,000 when taxes are finished. The man that knows how to do it properly can make $60,000 and he takes home 50. So who's really making more money?
Right.
The man makes 80,000. He's making more money than you if you know
This is
how to do
what
it properly.
this is we probably got to bring on Ricardo. We
Mm.
gotta bring on Ricardo. Yeah. I love this. Yeah, Ricardo McCray. Yep.
Okay. Okay.
Yeah.
So that's what that series is. It's continuing to go. So it's going to go until April. So for
So
anyone
you can,
that's
is it free or is you have to pay for it?
it's free. It's absolutely free. And I
So
tell you this,
people, tell them what it is, because some people watch
go
and
to the BBPA. I'll tell you this, I'm giving the BBPA so much credit. So what they're actually doing, they're not just talking, they're not just sharing information, but they're actually putting up money. They're putting up grants for small businesses for looking, trying to get off the ground. They're actually giving the money out. They're actually putting resources. So you know what? You're coming through your company, you're having challenges. They'll help you assess your company and they'll provide you the resources and they pay for it. Like they're actually doing what the BBP, what we believe it to be, what the BBP
right.
is. They're providing information, but they're disseminating and they're being the source of going forward. So go to the BBPA, which is the Black Business Professional Association. And on the site, you will see many of the programs they're going through. They have multitudes. They have Boss Woman, which is one for women entrepreneurs. They're doing they have another program for financial literacy for youth and young adults on Saturday mornings. And we'll sit down there and teach them money, teach them how to systems, teach them how to invest in stocks and what stocks. They're actually in the BBA again is actually giving them hard cash
Wow.
to go invest in here. And let's see at the end of the period, if you are the winning group, you keep your result, you keep your benefits. If the group that goes through and you lose your money, well, you just lose the principal, but you are not personally liable. Like they're actually doing a lot of
This
programs.
is, you know what? It's unfortunate because I wonder if it's really reaching some of the community that it needs to reach, because so I'm sure some people are hearing this for the first time. So I'm glad that you're sharing this today, Anton, and you're being a voice and an advocate out there. And you're showing people how to pivot and how to market. And I know your time is limited tonight because you got family Zoom.
Well, it is. I got a few more minutes still, man. Because
They're probably wondering, where's Anton? Anton is doing
oh,
what Anton.
believe me, I've been getting the pings already. But you know what? Here's what the reality is. I take the time for those in our community because the reality is oftentimes we do not. The Bible says we have not because we ask not. But the
Come
reality
on.
is oftentimes we don't know what to even
What
ask.
to ask?
And that's in the business realm. So when there's opportunities to share, particularly within my community, I do. I do my best. I do my best to work with them because you know what? By the time my kids get older, I don't want them to have the same problems that I had growing up and what at my generation before me had growing up. We don't know. And so that's why I like sharing the information. As I said, I work with them. I'm working with some other groups as well, and they're trying to make a difference. And I'm willing to work with anyone that's really trying to make a sustainable difference.
Anton, I thank you. And I mean, anybody listening here, and we have so much more to go through. So this is not our only conversation. It's going to be a series of conversations that we're going to be doing. What are we talking about today, Anton?
Yes, yes,
wherever you catch us, you catch us.
yes.
And, it's interesting because both Anton and I are hosting events and hosting shows. And it's like, I was talking to Keisha Wint last week, and we said, a Black History Month, even though it's a busy month, can be a busy month for some of us who are hosting shows. It can also be our poorest month because nobody wants to pay. And so we have change. We have to change the narrative. We were talking about that in Clubhouse last week on Black content creators, and talking about where host, and some we had a great person from CBC talk and said, you know what, when they're asking for hosts, people pay for it, and our community seems to be giving it away for free. So we need to value our hosts. We need to value those people that are artists, those people that are running their businesses in this time, especially. People like Sarah Oyango, thank you for tuning in. Sarah is another one who's hosting. Sarah actually hosted a really great Black History Month event with me a few years ago in Ottawa when I was working at the Senate, and we had such a great time bringing in the senators. I highlighted the three first Black senators in the Senate of Canada, and it was a great event. And so we really have to learn how to celebrate each other. And I think this Black History Month, if you had any advice as this month ends and we go into the rest of the year, what would be something that you would like to see from our community as we talk about our Black history and embrace who we are?
Well, what I would like to see, take advantage of the information that's being disseminated right now, because oftentimes it's not as readily available throughout the rest of the year. And take advantage of understand your history and some of the accomplishments, and then use that as a catalyst to start your own journey, of how you can make a difference. Our history doesn't have to be his story, it's our story. And
Yeah.
let's change that. Let's take that so we can now take it going forward, because I've seen it many times. Although disenfranchised from different industries and so forth, when we are allowed, we still elevate. So if we were able to find ways to leverage some of our history, leverage some of our integrated strengths, and start to work together, elevate, that's when we can like to transform. And so, what I'd like
Indeed,
to
moment
see,
to
I would
transform.
like to see us start to recognize that who we are, and that together we can transform a lot of things. You know what? The narratives that we're told, get off my neck, of what George Floyd said. Well, get off our heads. Get off our heads and let us breathe. Let us breathe. Let's
Mm.
breathe new air. Let's breathe new opportunity. Let's breathe a new. Let's breathe a new business, because you know what? Tomorrow was for you. To this year is for us.
See the nuggets, the nuggets, the nuggets. I love you, Anton James. You're just like supercalifragilisticexpialidocious. I'm just saying. So I'm gonna ask you,
Yeah.
what are you reading? Is there any good books you're reading these days? What are you reading? What is suggested reading that you would have to elevate transformation, my brother?
Well, you know what? I tend to do a lot of, in terms of first reading, brain type, I am an audio. So I love audios. So what I tend to, I'm listening to about four different things right now. So one, mine is political side. So how do I love Dr. Anderson. His name's Dr. Anderson. What he does, he looks into economic structures in order to really empower us as a people. I look into psychologists such as, um, there's Mark Transienia, and what he basically makes reference to is how we as a people can change our brain sets.
Mhm.
I look into history to understand. When I look over to Ghana and I look into Nigeria, and I look over to how the six of the 10 fastest growing economies over in Africa and what they're currently doing. I look into, the next phase of IoT, um, and artificial intelligence, and how we can actually embrace that. And I look into where is the greatest opportunity for us to pivot and make the biggest impact. So there's not one thing I listen to. I listen to a
Mhm.
lot of things. On top of it, I'm having to learn French, which is, or to read French. So I'm doing, that's typically what I tend to read, or I listen to kind
Yeah.
of get my brain going.
Your brain is more than going, Anton. Your brain is going. Your wisdom beard is growing in. Is there a favorite quote that you have
A favorite quote? Mm.
or saying?
Well, let me see. I have many sayings. Yeah, I have many sayings that, but growing up, there was a few things that I remember. Knowledge that wisdom is not the or knowledge is not the say it differently. I'll try to translate so it kind of comes out as best it can. It was that knowledge in of itself that's kept in a book is not going to make a transformation. But wisdom is able to take the knowledge that you have and embrace and make change. It's to take it and put it into action. That was essentially what it said. It was said in different ways, but my quote, I don't know if I'd have a set quote. I'll think about one driving quote, but that's basically my driving principle. That I question things. I question things. I
Yeah.
change things because I believe. I believe all is possible. A lot of mine will become will be biblically based, and because you know, biblical principles, whether you believe Bible or not. Again, I'm going to go back to the system. Those principles, they they work whether you believe them or not. It's just as it doesn't matter whether you believe cyanide will poison you. It doesn't matter. Whether you believe it will or not, it will change you. And so I think that, you know what, we've always got to be striving forward. We always got to look to transform because your yesterday will not be today and your tomorrow will not be today. So no matter where you are, whatever phase you're in, it won't always be this way. That gets me through the rough times and that keeps me driving for when I'm in the good times.
Anton James, Anton James, Anton James. A couple more questions for you. What's the
Yeah.
best advice? What's one of the best advice you've ever been given?
Wow. The best advice I've ever been given. I was growing up, I engaged my grandmother a lot. So my grandmother growing up, brilliant. I've engaged a lot of brains over the years, but she
Mhm.
was absolutely brilliant. I have never seen anything like that. And one of the advice she actually gave me, she was a business owner. She owned multiple nursing homes. She had real estate. She had a whole heap of stuff. And I remember one day she said, Anton, if you try to if you try to be like everyone else, you're going to get what everyone else is going to get.
Mm,
Everything that's in you, that in each person, what she was telling me was, Anton, what's in you actually put in you. It wasn't just acquired by luck and by chance. As many people think that that voice or that dream that's in them, they just happen to watch the shows. So look to find your inner you and drive towards that. She kept telling me that.
wow.
She said, "There's knowledge, and drive towards it." I go, "Well, when you're young." So my grandparents, they're Jamaican. We're of Jamaican descent, and some of the things that they would say, it didn't make any sense to me growing up. None. Until you got to go, arms old son. Why? It just didn't make sense. But when the older you get, a lot of the little phrases that you would
Yeah.
hear, when dog volume and cheese and where bones are not provided, dogs are not invited, and those type of phrases.
That's
I'm
you.
telling you. Hey, believe me, I'm telling you, you know what? They sound silly, but when you start to really break them down, you can't do it all by yourself. That's one.
Hmm.
No matter how great you are, you can only be great in certain aspects. And if you really want growth, you've got to work in teams. And the reason why that became very apparent, and that was one that, so there's two things that my grandmother taught me. When I was at well, I won't call the corporation out, which I've called many times already. Um, there came to be a period when I was under attack, man. Um, one of the bosses in another department, she came over. She said, "You know what?" She didn't like me. I said, "Well, why? What's the problem?" She goes, "Anton, you're too flat." I
You're
had
too,
hmm?
you're
No,
too
because
flashy.
I was too flashy. That was her statement. I go, "What does that mean?" Well, because I had a BMW. It was pearl white. It was pretty. I had a lot of suits. Just my style. She says, "You make an entrance when you walk into a room." And I go, "Well, what's that got to do with my work?" I go, "Listen, what I spend on or what I buy. You go to the bar and you blow $500 a weekend, a night. I don't do that. So, but why? What does that make a
Yeah.
difference?"
Yeah.
Because of that mentality, I was in a situation where I always said, "Let me just do it all by myself and I'm not trust anybody else."
Mm,
But the problem was I was good, but there's certain aspects I got holes because you can only be as good. So the one of the best advice my grandma told me with that one is, Anton, you will never get to where you want to be by yourself. You've
no
got
man is an island. Yeah.
yeah, and that's where I started that's when I started getting into NLP and starting to understand the different personality types and be able to understand who's the real Judas and who's giving you, giving you correction, but not to tear you down,
To build you up.
you up. And
The
that
iron sharpeners.
right.
Yeah.
It's yeah, right. So the destiny helpers, as she would call
I love it. I love it. What would you say to your younger self now,
it.
Anton?
Oh man. I would take it. I'd have started the journey a lot longer, a lot earlier. I would have it took me a while, particularly when you're being attacked from so many different ways. And I'm not just talking physical attack, like
Mhm,
sometimes it's just psychological. I
mhm.
would have taught myself stand and fight through more. Don't always go for
Mm,
the easiest path. The easiest path is easy, but it's the product of it will be limited.
I love that, Anton. Serena says, I love your grandmother's pearls of wisdom.
Yeah,
Wendy's like, speak, speak.
yeah, yeah,
Oh,
yeah.
oh, Sarah was
I miss
asking,
my grand.
is there
Yeah,
a national, I have to look into that. I actually wanted to start this one time, but I thought it existed. Is there a National Black Speakers Bureau? A great way to make sure our talented presenters and speakers are paid.
yeah. I would love to know if there was
Okay,
one. I don't know because
we started it. Forget it. We're starting it. Who cares?
okay, okay,
If there's one, yeah. One person comes to mind as I think about that as our conversation from Clubhouse. Uh,
yeah,
uh,
yeah,
uh, and if
yeah.
anybody don't know about Clubhouse, well, we'll talk to you and we'll invite you to the club. Is there anything you want to say else that you want to leave with the audience who have taken the time tonight to spend with us? And uh, what are we talking about today, Anton?
Well, I tell you, well, the first thing I want to thank him for coming. I thank him for listening. Like, sometimes how I listen, when I was going through, everyone at a different place would go through different Red Sea moments. And Red Sea moment is when you're in your crux and all the logic and distance in the world, but you're there and you're hitting your situation. You don't know how to cross. And sometimes it's just knowing someone else is going through it, someone else that is navigating through it, or is giving you advice that you know they really have your interest, not external people's interest, not whatever the interest is, but your interest. When I was going through my roughest point, man, I was like, listen, no one could understand. I didn't know who to trust. I didn't know that. So the one thing I would love to say is, listen, man, the truth be told, if you don't already, you have to, you have to get a circle of friends that can be your destiny helpers. Call them whatever you want to call them, accountability friends, but you as an individual, you can't do it by yourself. You can't. There are systems. You have to learn systems so that when you get tired, because we're all humans, we will all get tired. We're all going to get beat up. We're all going to get. How do you push through? How do you even when you're not even get beat up, when you're comfortable? How, my mother would always say, Anton, there's nothing wrong with being a sweet streeper, but if you're going to be a if you can be a doctor, don't be a sweet streeper. There's nothing wrong with being a doctor. But if you can own the hospital. Anton, there's nothing wrong with being a president, whatever it may be. But be the highest you can be. Don't get caught up in the comfortability of where you are and what's easy. Go to where you are to be. And so I would inspire all of us to try to look again, look again, dream again. Many of our dreams have been snuffed out for various reasons. Life changes, bad decisions. But listen to me, dream again. This is a new year. 2021 happened, man, and things are changing. Schools are changing, but dream again because what was once can once again be, and it can change overnight. Dream again.
Dream again. I say dream big, and we're dreaming again. If you look behind my back, you probably can't see it. It's right at the top of my wall, and it says dream big. I have it on my wall that I have to see it every day. And behind my back, if you're not seeing it already, Anton, that
Mhm.
message is for you and everyone listening. You're amazing in the black and white there, so that you remember that you're amazing You're amazing. You're amazing. I'm just so stoked that you're on here. I wish this conversation didn't have to end because there's so many nuggets that we haven't even yet touched. We haven't talked about mentorship.
Yeah,
We haven't even touched about really marketing you, but that's going to be part of our theme, marketing you.
yeah, yeah,
I mean, we're going to have to figure out how we're going to do some of the things so that you can tune in here because we're going to do a lot of stuff on Clubhouse. If
indeed.
you're looking for somebody who's going to help you market yourself,
Mm,
you're looking for a consultant for your company.
mm,
If you don't think Anton James is one of your guys that you should be calling on, I think you should. Anton, as people look to get in contact with you,
mhm.
um, can they send an email to this the First Line Productions at Yahoo,
You
or should we do something else?
use AntonJames@Rogers.com.
Okay,
Some of
so
the
let me put that.
pro- yeah,
I'm gonna put that up there. Anton
yeah,
James at
at Rogers.
Rogers.com. I had
Yeah.
your yeah, you're watching my college, your producer music. We haven't even touched on your
Oh,
music.
look at
Anton James at Rogers.com. So if
it.
you're looking for Anton, you want to talk to him, you want to engage him, you want to hire him, listen, I'm all about the hire. I'm all
Yeah,
about making sure that we connect with one another. You know, iron sharpens iron, no man is an island. And we have to edify
yeah,
each other. And, I think this was a conversation of edification. And
yeah.
if you missed who I'm talking to, this is Anton James, the voice. Do you know why he's the voice? Did you hear his voice tonight? Uh,
No, very.
I didn't give him that name. Somebody else gave him that name, but I like it. So I'm keeping it. The
Yeah.
voice and marketing specialist. Thank you for coming on, Anton. I so
Mm,
appreciate you. And thank you for everyone who's been tuning in tonight. I am Nicole Waldron, your voice of victory. And follow me on Instagram and on Twitter and on YouTube at Victory Speaks 7. Victory Speaks with an S and the number 7. The Facebook page, if you're listening on YouTube live and on the replay, is Victory Speaks 77. I also do an audio podcast, and you can listen to it on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, Anchor, and anywhere else you listen to podcasts. Is where I share the victory formula, your guide to living a victorious lifestyle. And if you're on Clubhouse, follow me at Victory Speaks. And there's a quote that a friend of mine shared with me, Emily Mills. The distinction between you and other people is you. You are unique. And as we say, remember you, know who you are. And that was part of our conversation tonight. Marketing you. And as you understand you and you know your identity, don't let anybody snuff you out. Continue to be the light. Continue to be salt in the earth. Know that you are salt in the earth. I encourage you to be intentional and have an inspired conversation today with someone you love and someone you meet. And if it's not tonight, make it tomorrow, but make it someday this week. And intention is a funny thing. You can have the best of intentions, but if you don't make a plan with that intention, it won't happen. So set an alarm, make an appointment with yourself to check on someone, and start that conversation with a smile, even if they're not seeing your face. A smile translates through everything else. And when you ask someone how they're doing, stop and listen. It's funny how Anton, mentioned that tonight. We don't stop and really listen to how people are saying what they are feeling, and especially in this time of this pandemic where so many people are isolated. It's a dangerous thing when we're isolated and we're not connected to people. And watch what you speak. Watch what you say. Victory speaks. Life and death is in the power of the tongue. Are you speaking life when you're speaking today? Did you speak life in your conversations this week? If not, listen to what you're saying. Reflect on what you've been saying to yourself and to others. Make sure that even in the littlest ways, sometimes we say, oh, she's crazy. Oh, it's in those little things. Oh, this is going to kill me. Your words have life and your words have death. Let your words speak life today. May this week, as you go on, as today was Family Day, hope you got some time to spend with family. And even if you don't have all the family you want around you, know that there's extended family that love you. And thank you for being the part of the victory family today. And may those little victorious moments add up and add up and add up until it becomes one big victory. I'm grateful for you joining me today, and I'm grateful for you tuning in. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. This is Victory Speaks signing out. I am your host, Nicole Waldron. Some know me as Nicole Karen Virginia Waldron. And you know what? There's this song that my previous guest last week sang, uh, Keisha Wind, and it's "Hold Your Head to the Sky." If you ever want to think of someone to purchase some music from, Keisha Wind. She's actually got a new song called "Black Shoes," so check that out. But this is her song. Hold your head up high. Your future is here. We thank you for tuning in. Thank you for staying with us. This is my phenomenal guest, Anton James, the voice. We're going to be doing something special. Stay tuned as we release what we're going to be doing. What are we talking today about, Anton? And he tell me, hush, hush.
Hush, hush.
I love it. Okay, peace. We're out. He's got to go. He's got a family Zoom meeting, y'all. Bye.
Take care.